The ink flowed across the paper in steady strokes. December 3, 1945, inside the walls of Sugamo Prison in Tokyo, Admiral Tuichi Harra sat in his cell documenting truths that months before would have cost him his life. This veteran commander, who had led Cruiser Division 5 through 7 brutal naval engagements, was finally recording what he had suspected since witnessing the devastating losses at Philippine Sea. The Americans possessed something far beyond superior tactics or training. They had the ability to replace losses faster than Japan could achieve victories. Every ship sunk returned as 2 ships. Every aircraft destroyed came back as 3 aircraft. Fighting America was like trying to drain an ocean with buckets. No matter how much water you removed, more always flowed in to replace it. Beyond the prison walls, Tokyo lay in ruins. Miles of ash and rubble stretched to the horizon. The once proud capital had been reduced to skeletal remains by B-29 superfortresses that arrived in numbers that defied Japanese understanding of what was possible. These massive bombers appeared over Japanese cities like mechanical storms, wave after wave of aircraft larger than anything Japan had imagined. Each raid brought more bombers than Japan possessed in total inventory. The harbor told an even more devastating story. American warships sat at anchor, displaying casual dominance. Their crews performed routine maintenance on machines of war that contained more steel than entire Japanese cities had possessed before the bombing campaigns began. These vessels represented industrial capacity that existed beyond Japanese comprehension. Single American destroyers outweighed Japanese cruisers. American cruisers dwarfed Japanese battleships in firepower and protection. Inside Sugamo's interrogation rooms, Japanese naval leadership faced a crushing reality. They had been forced to acknowledge facts they had either ignored completely or been forbidden to speak aloud during wartime. The rooms had become confessionals, where Japan's military elite confronted an impossible truth. They had chosen to wage war against an industrial giant that didn't just outproduce Japan by small margins. America outproduced Japan by factors so enormous they bordered on mathematical impossibility. Orders of magnitude separated American capacity from Japanese capability. The testimony being collected by the United States Strategic Bombing Survey would reveal something unprecedented in military history. This wasn't merely documentation of tactical defeat or strategic miscalculation. This was the most comprehensive admission of industrial inadequacy ever recorded. Senior officers who had commanded fleets and air wings were methodically explaining how they had led their nation into conflict against an enemy that produced more military aircraft in single months than Japan manufactured in entire years. The delusion had been complete and fatal. These revelations traced back decades to warnings that had fallen on deaf ears. The roots of Japan's catastrophic miscalculation stretched back to the 1920s, when Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto had spent years studying America firsthand. Between 1919 and 1921, Yamamoto attended Harvard University. From 1922 to 1924, he served as naval attaché in Washington. Those 4 years in America had provided him with insights that would later prove prophetically accurate. He returned to Japan carrying warnings that Japanese leadership systematically ignored. In correspondence dated January 1941, to Navy Minister Koshiro Oikawa, Yamamoto had written words that would haunt Japan's war planners. Any person who had witnessed the automobile factories of Detroit and the petroleum fields of Texas understood that Japan completely lacked the industrial power necessary for sustained naval competition with America. His assessment of American productive capacity would prove not just accurate, but conservative. Captain Minoru Gender had accompanied military missions to America in 1940. His detailed reports documented visits to Boeing's massive Seattle manufacturing complex, where B-17 flying fortresses rolled off assembly lines with mechanical precision. The facility produced heavy bombers using mass production techniques that Japan could not hope to replicate with decades of development. Where American factories completed aircraft in days, Japanese manufacturers required weeks for simpler, twin-engine bombers. Mitsubishi's most efficient plants needed 3 full weeks to complete aircraft that American factories finished in less than 5 days. The speed differential wasn't merely impressive, it was economically devastating. These stark statistics had been available to Japanese leadership, but were consistently dismissed. The Mitsubishi delegation that visited Douglas aircraft facilities in California had counted 6,000 workers on a single production shift. These workers were manufacturing DC-3 transport aircraft that would later become C-47 military cargo planes. 6,000 workers in one American factory represented nearly 20% of Japan's entire aircraft industry workforce. All Japanese aircraft companies combined employed 35,000 workers total. A single American manufacturing facility employed 1/5 of Japan's complete aviation workforce. Yet these warnings disappeared into bureaucratic indifference. Admiral Osami Nagano, who served as Chief of Naval General Staff, had dismissed American industrial capability in briefings to Emperor Hirohito during September 1941. American workers possessed soft discipline, he claimed. Their factories emphasized quantity over quality. Japanese fighting spirit combined with superior training would overcome any material disadvantage through moral superiority and tactical excellence. The Navy Ministry's own intelligence divisions had compiled accurate statistics about American productive capacity. These numbers were available to senior leadership throughout the war planning process. Post-war interrogations revealed that Japan's military commanders possessed precise data about American capabilities, but chose to ignore inconvenient facts. Steel production figures showed the mathematical impossibility of competing with American industry. The United States in 1941 produced 19.4 million tons of steel annually. Japan's best year yielded 5.8 million tons total. Oil refining capacity revealed an even more devastating disparity. America processed 4.3 million barrels of petroleum daily. Japan had access to approximately 55,000 barrels per day, mostly from territories they would need to conquer and hold under wartime conditions. The attack on Pearl Harbor appeared to validate Japanese assumptions about American vulnerability. December 7, 1941, seemed to prove that surprise and superior training could overcome material disadvantage. 8 American battleships had been damaged or sunk. 188 aircraft were destroyed on the ground. 2,403 Americans died in the surprise attack. The Imperial Japanese Navy had seemingly crippled American Pacific naval power in 90 minutes of coordinated assault. But Admiral Tuichi Harra, who commanded the Pearl Harbor striking force, understood implications that escaped celebration in Tokyo. His post-war interrogation revealed immediate concerns that had troubled him even during the moment of apparent triumph. The attack had found only older battleships in port. No aircraft carriers were present. More disturbing, the massive oil storage tanks remained completely untouched. The submarine base suffered no damage. Repair facilities continued operating at full capacity. Commander Minoru Gender, flying over Pearl Harbor as an observer during the attack, noticed details that chilled him despite the tactical success. His later testimony to American interrogators revealed observations that should have warned Japan about the true scale of American naval power. The harbor contained more auxiliary vessels than the entire Japanese Navy possessed. These weren't warships, but support ships, tenders and oilers and cargo vessels. Yet these support craft outnumbered Japan's entire battle fleet. The Pearl Harbor attack force departed believing they had struck America's primary Pacific naval installation. They discovered that Pearl Harbor was merely one facility among dozens scattered across the Pacific. San Diego and Bremerton and Mare Island and Hunters Point each individually matched or exceeded Japan's primary naval facility at Yokosuka. The Battle of Coral Sea in May 1942 provided the first glimpse of American industrial resilience that would define the entire Pacific War. The aircraft carrier USS Yorktown suffered severe damage from Japanese bombing attacks and limped back to Pearl Harbor trailing oil and listing badly. Japanese intelligence estimated that repairs would require 3 to 6 months, based on their own shipyard capabilities. Such damage would remove a Japanese carrier from service for the remainder of 1942 and possibly beyond. Naval records document that Yorktown entered dry dock at Pearl Harbor on May 27th. Working around the clock, 1,400 skilled workers swarmed over the damaged carrier like organized insects. Portable power plants were positioned alongside, providing electricity for continuous operations. Welding arcs illuminated the harbor throughout the night, creating an industrial light show. Pre-cut steel plates manufactured to exact specifications waited in organized stockpiles. Every repair had been planned and prepared before the ship arrived. Within 72 hours, Yorktown was combat-ready and sailing for Midway on May 30th. American shipyards had accomplished in 3 days what Japanese facilities required 11 weeks to complete. The Japanese carrier Shokaku, damaged at Coral Sea, required extensive repairs at Yokosuka that kept her out of action for nearly 3 months. Post-war analysis revealed the enormous disparity in repair capabilities. American shipyards employed pneumatic tools and electric welding equipment with unlimited supplies of high-quality steel. Japanese yards relied primarily on manual labor and improvised materials with chronic shortages of everything needed for major repairs. June 4, 1942, at the Battle of Midway, Japan lost 4 irreplaceable fleet carriers. Akagi and Kaga and Soryu and Hiryu went to the bottom along with decades of naval aviation expertise and training. The true defeat wasn't the ships lost, but the revelation of replacement rates that favored America by impossible margins. Admiral Mateo Iwagaki, serving as Yamamoto's chief of staff, recorded devastating observations in his personal diary on June 10th. The Americans would replace their Midway losses within 12 months. Japan could not replace their losses within 10 years. His assessment proved optimistically wrong in America's favor. Essex-class carriers were already under construction, with the first commissioned in December 1942. By war's end, America had completed 17 Essex-class fleet carriers, plus 9 Independence-class light carriers. Japan would complete only 3 additional fleet carriers during the entire remaining war. Aircraft losses at Midway revealed similar disparity. Japan lost 248 aircraft and 110 irreplaceable veteran pilots who represented years of training and combat experience. America lost 150 aircraft and 60 airmen. Within 6 weeks, American carrier air groups had returned to full strength with replacement aircraft and freshly trained pilots. Japan never fully recovered from their Midway aviation losses. The experienced pilots lost represented institutional knowledge that could not be quickly replaced. The Guadalcanal campaign from August 1942 through February 1943 became a grinding demonstration of industrial capacity applied to warfare. Japan and America fought 7 major naval battles in those contested waters with losses that appeared roughly equivalent. America lost 29 ships of various classes. Japan lost 38 vessels. The numbers suggested balanced attrition that neither side could sustain indefinitely. But the aftermath revealed the true story of industrial resilience. According to post-war interrogations within 6 months of Guadalcanal's conclusion, American fleets appeared in the Pacific that were larger than all ships they had lost during the entire campaign. Japan struggled desperately to replace even their destroyer losses. Simple mathematics revealed the impossibility of continuing such exchanges. The Tokyo Express destroyer runs to resupply Guadalcanal exposed the logistical mismatch. Japanese destroyers burning precious fuel could deliver 240 tons of supplies per dangerous high-speed run. Each mission risked irreplaceable warships to deliver minimal cargo under constant threat of air attack. American Liberty ships, mass-produced at rates of 3 vessels daily, could deliver 10,000 tons per voyage. One American cargo ship carried more supplies than 40 Japanese destroyer runs, while consuming no warships in the process. Japanese forces on Guadalcanal suffered severe malnutrition, with only 30% combat effectiveness by December 1942. American forces, meanwhile, complained about monotonous rations while consuming 4,700 calories daily and maintaining full combat readiness. By early 1943, Japanese naval intelligence possessed accurate figures of American monthly production that were so demoralizing they were classified above top secret. Documents captured after the war revealed monthly production comparisons that defied belief. Aircraft production showed America manufacturing 7,200 planes monthly, while Japan produced 650. Aircraft engines revealed America building 18,000 units monthly against Japan's 1,200. Pilot training showed America graduating 12,000 naval aviators monthly, while Japan trained 300. Warship launches demonstrated America completing 48 vessels monthly, while Japan managed 3. Merchant shipping showed America delivering 140 cargo ships monthly against Japan's 8. Submarine production revealed America commissioning 8 boats monthly, while Japan completed 2. Rear Admiral Sokichi Takagi, upon reviewing these production figures at Naval General Staff, reportedly told colleagues that if these numbers were even half accurate, Japan had already lost the war. The statistics were not half true. They were conservative estimates. American production was accelerating beyond Japanese ability to comprehend or counter. The Willow Run plant in Michigan alone produced 650 B-24 Liberator bombers monthly. Japan's entire heavy bomber production for the complete war totaled 15 aircraft. The Battle of the Philippine Sea from June 19 to 20, 1944, demonstrated the culmination of industrial disparity applied to naval aviation. Japan scraped together 9 aircraft carriers with 473 aircraft for this decisive engagement. America deployed 15 carriers with 956 aircraft. The numerical advantage was overwhelming, but the qualitative differences proved even more devastating. Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa, commanding the Japanese fleet, testified during his post-war interrogation that Japanese pilots averaged fewer than 200 flying hours of training. American pilots received minimum 600 hours before assignment to combat squadrons. Japan had no aviation fuel available for extensive training. American pilots trained continuously with unlimited fuel supplies. The technological gap between aircraft was equally insurmountable. American carriers launched F-6F Hellcats, powered by 2,000 horsepower engines and armed with 650 caliber machine guns. These fighters featured self-sealing fuel tanks and armor plating that could absorb significant battle damage. Japanese Zeros remained virtually unchanged since 1940. They featured no armor protection and no self-sealing fuel tanks. 950 horsepower engines provided adequate performance in 1940, but were completely outclassed by 1944 American aircraft. The results were numerically inevitable. Japan lost 476 aircraft and 3 carriers during the engagement. America lost 130 aircraft and suffered no ship losses. Japan's aircraft losses represented 8 months of pilot training output. America replaced their 76 aircraft losses within days from training programs, producing 3,000 naval aviators monthly. November 1944 brought the first B-29 superfortresses over Tokyo, flying from bases in Saipan. Each bomber cost $639,000, which exceeded the value of most Japanese government buildings. America built 3,970 B-29s. The complete superfortress program cost $3 billion, which exceeded Japan's entire annual military budget for any year of the war. Each B-29 contained 55,000 individual parts manufactured to tolerances that Japan could not measure accurately. Pressurized cabins and remotely controlled gun turrets and computerized bombing systems represented technology Japan could not replicate with decades of development. B-29 raids revealed American industrial excess that transcended Japanese understanding. The bombers flew 1,500 miles from the Marianas to drop their bombs on Japanese cities, then return to base. Round trips of 3,000 miles consumed 6,000 gallons of aviation gasoline per aircraft. A 500-plane raid burned 3 million gallons of fuel. This represented Japan's complete monthly aviation fuel production consumed in a single night's bombing operation. The March 9th to 10th, 1945 incendiary raid on Tokyo dropped 1,665 tons of firebombs, destroying 16 square miles of the city. This single raid dropped more ordnance than the entire Japanese Air Force possessed in total inventory. The invasion of Okinawa in April 1945 demonstrated American industrial might at its absolute peak. The invasion fleet comprised 1,457 vessels, representing more ships than the Imperial Japanese Navy had operated throughout its complete history. Vice Admiral Takejiro Onishi, creator of the Kamikaze Corps, testified before his suicide that he had counted over 100 destroyers in the screening force alone. Japan possessed 11 destroyers remaining in the entire Navy. The kamikaze campaign at Okinawa revealed the mathematical futility of courage against industrial output. Japan launched 1,900 kamikaze attacks during the battle. They succeeded in sinking 36 ships and damaging 368 others. Within 60 days, every sunken ship had been replaced. Most damaged vessels were repaired and returned to service. The supply operation supporting Okinawa operations defied Japanese comprehension. Transport ships delivered 50,000 tons of supplies daily. Food and ammunition and fuel and medical supplies flowed to American forces in quantities that exceeded Japan's ability to supply all their remaining forces combined. Japan's merchant marine could not move 50,000 tons weekly to all theaters of operation. America delivered that amount daily to a single battle zone while maintaining supply lines to every other combat area simultaneously. Throughout 1944 and 1945, American submarines systematically eliminated Japanese merchant shipping with industrial efficiency. America commissioned 228 submarines during the war, compared to Japan's 126. American submarines were manufactured on assembly lines, while Japan hand-built each vessel. By January 1945, American submarines had destroyed 60% of Japan's merchant fleet, totaling 4.8 million tons of shipping. Japan's complete shipbuilding industry, working desperately, could produce 500,000 tons annually. America's Liberty ship program alone exceeded 500,000 tons monthly production. The technological advantages in submarine warfare were insurmountable. American submarines featured air conditioning and cold food storage, and ice cream machines and washing facilities. Japanese submarines operated in 120-degree heat, with crews surviving on rice and pickled vegetables. Malnutrition was endemic aboard Japanese submarines, with scurvy and beriberi common among crews. American submariners enjoyed better living conditions underwater than most Japanese civilians experienced on land. Emperor Hirohito's surrender broadcast ended the fighting on August 15, 1945, but statistical analysis continued in occupation interrogation rooms. Japanese officers freed from wartime censorship revealed comprehensive numbers to the United States Strategic Bombing Survey. Admiral Soemu Toyoda, final commander of the Combined Fleet, testified in November 1945 about the mathematical impossibility of Japanese victory. The United States possessed adequate raw materials and tremendous production capacity that Japan could never match. Steel production comparisons showed America manufacturing 80 to 100 million tons annually, while Japan's supply totaled 6 million tons. The disparity was more than 10 to 1 in America's favor. Total wartime production statistics revealed the cumulative impossibility of Japanese success. Military aircraft showed America producing 324,750 planes against Japan's 76,320. Tanks demonstrated America building 88,410 units, while Japan manufactured 2,515. Military truck production revealed America completing over 2,300,000 vehicles compared to Japan's 165,945. Aircraft carrier construction showed America launching 141 carriers against Japan's 17. Battleship production demonstrated America completing 10 new battleships, while Japan finished 2. Cruiser construction revealed America building 48 units, compared to Japan's 6. Destroyer production showed America launching 349 vessels against Japan's 63. Submarine manufacturing demonstrated America commissioning 228 boats, while Japan completed 126. Merchant shipping revealed the most devastating disparity, with America building over 33 million tons compared to Japan's 4 million tons. Admiral Yamamoto had been killed in April 1943 when American P-38 fighters intercepted his transport aircraft in an operation made possible by breaking Japanese communication codes. His pre-war assessments, documented in naval archives, proved completely accurate. In correspondence to Navy Minister Oikawa, dated September 1941, Yamamoto had written that hostilities between Japan and America would require more than conquering Guam and the Philippines. Success would demand capturing Hawaii and San Francisco, then marching on Washington to dictate peace terms in the White House. He questioned whether Japanese politicians possessed confidence in final victory and willingness to make necessary sacrifices. His most prescient observation came in a letter to Admiral Inoue Shigeyoshi about the impossibility of sustained conflict with America. During the first 6 months to 1 year of war, Japan might achieve victories through surprise and superior training. After that period, he possessed no confidence whatsoever in Japanese chances for success. Japanese technical officers provided the most detailed testimony about industrial disparity during post-war interrogations. Their engineering backgrounds enabled precise understanding of American manufacturing capabilities that had defeated Japan. Naval construction experts testified that American welding techniques were 5 years ahead of Japanese methods. Americans welded complete ship sections in factories, then assembled vessels like enormous puzzles. Japan continued riveting individual plates using labor-intensive traditional methods. Single American shipyard workers accomplished tasks requiring 10 Japanese workers. Quality differences were equally striking, with examination of captured American equipment revealing that every component was machined to precise tolerances, enabling complete interchangeability between aircraft. Japanese manufacturers hand-fitted parts individually for each aircraft. Americans mass-produced components with better quality than Japan could achieve through individual craftsmanship. General MacArthur landed at Atsugi Airfield on August 30, 1945, to begin occupation operations. The initial weeks provided Japanese officers with overwhelming evidence of American industrial supremacy that extended far beyond military production. The occupation fleet anchored in Tokyo Bay consisted of hundreds of warships, representing more naval power than Japan had ever possessed. This massive fleet was merely a convenient portion of American naval strength, not their complete force. Americans rapidly established telephone networks and postal systems and radio stations and transportation systems that exceeded anything Japan had constructed during decades of development. War damage was repaired faster than Japan had built original infrastructure. Food distribution through the Government and Relief in Occupied Areas program revealed American agricultural supremacy. Through Garioa, America provided $1.7 billion in aid, with 59% consisting of food and agricultural supplies, totaling $1.19 billion. Single Liberty ships carried 10,000 tons of wheat sufficient to feed entire Japanese cities for months. Hundreds of these vessels arrived as routine logistics, while America's domestic population experienced no shortages whatsoever. Japanese agricultural experts reviewing American data discovered that individual American farmers produced food for 27 people. Individual Japanese farmers barely sustained their own families. America's agricultural surplus alone could feed Japan's complete population indefinitely. Oil production statistics revealed the most devastating disparity of all. Japan had invaded the Dutch East Indies, seeking 5 million tons of petroleum annually. America produced equivalent amounts every 4 days. Japan's best production year yielded 2.7 million barrels total. America refined 1.7 billion barrels annually, representing 60% of global petroleum production. The ratio was 151-1 in America's favor. This single statistic explained the complete war's predetermined outcome better than any military analysis. Electronic technology gaps proved equally insurmountable, with every American warship equipped with multiple radar systems by 1945. Search radar and fire control radar and navigation radar operated simultaneously on American vessels. Japan's most advanced ships possessed single malfunctioning search sets that worked intermittently under ideal conditions. Proximity fuses exemplified American electronic sophistication, with each anti-aircraft shell containing miniature radar systems that detonated near enemy aircraft. These weapons increased anti-aircraft effectiveness 5 to 10 times compared to conventional ammunition. Japan could not manufacture basic vacuum tubes reliably, while America mass-produced 22 million proximity fuses as expendable ammunition. MIT's radiation laboratory employed 4,000 researchers, spending $1.5 billion developing over 100 different radar systems. Japan's complete Naval Electrical Research Division employed 300 personnel by August 1943. Human capital advantages proved equally decisive, with America training 250,000 pilots during the war, compared to Japan's 45,000. Japanese pilot training hours declined catastrophically as fuel shortages and aircraft losses mounted. Elite pilots received 600 to 700 hours training in 1941. By 1943, Navy pilots received 275 hours, while Army pilots got 130 hours. 1944 brought further reductions to 40 hours for Navy pilots and 60 hours for Army pilots by 1945. American training hours increased throughout the war, reaching over 525 hours average by 1944. Americans consumed more aviation fuel in training flights than Japan allocated for all combat operations combined. Japanese naval architects visiting American shipyards after the war witnessed industrial capacity that transcended comprehension. Kaiser's Richmond shipyards employed 100,000 workers at peak production, representing more personnel than Japan's complete shipbuilding workforce. Kaiser's 7 facilities built 1,490 vessels, totaling 27% of all maritime commission ships. Richmond yards averaged 1 Liberty ship every 42 days, with the record-setting SS Robert E. Perry constructed in just 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes. The most comprehensive testimonies emerged from senior officers during strategic bombing survey interrogations. Admiral Mitsumasa Yonai, who served as Navy minister, testified that Japan knew the production statistics, but believed superior spirit could overcome material disadvantage. 1 Japanese soldier might equal 3 Americans in fighting spirit, but 1 American factory equaled 50 Japanese factories in productive output. General Yoshijiro Umezu, who served as Army Chief of Staff and signed surrender documents, stated before his death in Sugamo prison that Japan had fought a modern war with obsolete thinking. They had brought swords to an industrial conflict. Post-war economic analysis revealed the complete impossibility of Japan's war effort from financial perspectives. America's total war expenditure reached $341 billion. Japan's entire gross domestic product for 1941 approximated $7 billion. America spent more developing atomic weapons through the Manhattan Project than Japan's complete government budget for 1943. Financial disparities were absolute, with America financing war through voluntary bond purchases, while Japan printed currency, creating 300% inflation that devastated civilian living standards. Cumulative production statistics provided final numerical verdict on the war's predetermined outcome. Military aircraft production totaled 324,750 American planes against 76,320 Japanese aircraft, representing a 4.3 to 1 advantage. Aircraft carrier construction showed 141 American carriers versus 17 Japanese vessels for an 8.3 to 1 ratio. Submarine production revealed 228 American boats against 126 Japanese submarines, representing 1.8 to 1 superiority. Destroyer construction demonstrated 349 American vessels versus 63 Japanese ships for 5.5 to 1 dominance. Merchant shipping showed the most devastating comparison, with America building 33,993,230 tons against Japan's 4,152,361 tons for 8.2 to 1 advantage. Oil production revealed 833 million tons American output versus 5.5 million tons Japanese production for 151 to 1 supremacy. Steel manufacturing showed 334 million American tons against 24 million Japanese tons, representing 14 to 1 superiority. Aluminum production demonstrated 2.8 million American tons versus 375,000 Japanese tons for 7.5 to 1 advantage in this critical aircraft material. Japanese officers who testified about American industrial supremacy became architects of Japan's post-war economic transformation. Their witness to American production methods learned through defeat provided blueprints for peaceful prosperity. U. Edwards Deming arrived in 1950, teaching quality control methods to Japanese industry. His seminars, attended by top executives, transmitted industrial knowledge that fueled Japan's economic miracle through the following decades. Companies founded by former military personnel applied American mass production techniques to consumer goods manufacturing. By 1960, Japan was producing automobiles that competed successfully with American cars in global markets. By 1970, Japanese electronics dominated world markets through superior quality and innovative design. By 1980, Japan had achieved through industrial excellence what military conquest had failed to accomplish. The comprehensive testimony of Japanese military officers about American industrial supremacy represents history's most detailed documentation of strategic miscalculation. They discovered that modern warfare depended on productive capacity rather than individual courage. Victory required statistics rather than spirit. Success demanded workers rather than warriors. Industrial capacity multiplied by factors of 10 created insurmountable advantages that no amount of tactical brilliance could overcome. Those 4 words captured the Pacific War's predetermined conclusion before the first shot was fired. Japan never possessed realistic chances for victory against American industrial might. Understanding why provided foundations for building a peaceful world where production serves prosperity rather than destruction.